Before we dive in, if you're new here, smash that like button, drop a comment with your favorite apex predator, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter in this human meets monster saga. Now let's step into the story. The archives played in silence, projected against the curved walls of the council chamber. Grainy footage of war machines, tall as fortresses and bristling with plasma cannons, rushed forward across an alien plane. Then the feed shuddered and the predator appeared. No warning, no shadow to precede it, only a blur of muscle and armor-like hide ripping through the front line. A single swipe cleaved a machine in half. Its roar reverberated even through the recorded feed, making several of the gathered dignitaries flinch. It was not the kill that terrified them. It was the speed, the precision. Weapons designed to shatter cities barely slowed it. The creature's claws gouged alloys no plasma cutter could breach. When the dust settled, the fleet's proud machines were nothing more than twisted wreckage scattered across the field. Legends had grown around that single battle. Some called it the End Beast, others the Warbreaker. Every retelling carried the same refrain: nothing built by the Council could survive its fury. For decades it had vanished into rumor and nightmare, but tonight the Council feared it had returned. Captain Elias Rourke sat at the edge of the chamber, uninvited but tolerated, a human among species that rarely considered his kind worth the air they breathed. He leaned back in his chair, scarred hands folded across his chest, watching as delegates hissed and shrieked about deployment, containment, annihilation. Elias had seen war. He had stood in deserts where the horizon shimmered with heat and enemy fire. He had counted every breath while a sniper scope framed men who would never see him coming. Machines, beasts, soldiers, it was all the same to him. He respected threats but he did not fear them. And that calm unsettled every alien who glanced his way. "The Predator cannot be allowed to surface again," declared a scaled delegate whose crest rattled with agitation. Entire fleets were humbled. "The image alone destabilizes our power." "It's not just destabilization," countered another, a thin, insectoid scholar with trembling mandibles. "The creature learns. Every encounter leaves it more cunning. If it rises once more, it could undo our dominion." Elias's lips twitched at the word dominion. He had heard it from warlords and commanders before, each convinced their authority stretched eternal. Nothing lasted forever. The chamber doors hissed open and a courier entered, carapace cracked from haste. "Report from the outer colonies," it rasped. "Villages abandoned overnight. Machines shredded. The pattern matches the Warbreaker." A ripple of panic raced through the chamber. Delegates hissed accusations, each demanding someone else's fleet be sacrificed to hunt the beast. Only Elias's voice cut through with steady clarity. "Where exactly?" The courier faltered, eyes sliding toward him. "Sector 4, on the edge of human settlement." A silence deeper than the void fell. The delegates exchanged glances. Of course it would be near human territory. Of course fate would drag humanity into the center of their terror. Elias rose, broad-shouldered and steady, the faint limp of old injuries marking his stride. "If your fleets failed, maybe it's not fleets you need." The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped, calling him arrogant, reckless, primitive. He ignored them. His gaze was locked on the courier's trembling hands clutching the report. The creature had returned and it was close enough to touch. Later, in the quiet of a docking bay, Elias loaded his pack. A rifle polished by years of use rested against the bench, though he wondered if it would matter against a beast that tore through war machines. Still, a rifle was more than a weapon. It was habit, ritual, reminder. He checked the edge of his combat knife, then slid it into its sheath. His reflection in the shuttle glass showed a man carved by service. Hard eyes, hair streaked with early gray, face weathered but unbowed. He wasn't marching to war this time. Not exactly. What drew him wasn't vengeance or orders. It was curiosity. The galaxy whispered of the Predator as if it were pure destruction. Elias suspected otherwise. Nothing fought with such ferocity without purpose. Nothing disappeared for decades unless it chose to. Machines broke, soldiers faltered, predators adapted. He wanted to see what kind of creature had humbled the Council and why it had chosen to rise again now. He boarded the shuttle, engines growling to life. Through the viewport, alien laborers avoided looking at him, muttering in their guttural tongues. They feared the Predator, but they feared the human who showed no fear more. The shuttle detached from the station and cut into the void. Elias keyed in the coordinates, watching stars smear into motion. His thoughts settled like the silence around him. He remembered the recordings, the roar, the claws, the way those war machines had been reduced to nothing. The council thought only of destroying it. But Elias wanted to understand it. Days later, the shuttle descended toward Sector 4. Scorched forests stretched beneath, trees splintered and blackened. The remains of council drones littered the landscape, limbs twisted, armor plates carved open like tin. Smoke rose from villages where walls had been peeled back by impossible force. Elias walked the ground, boots crunching on scorched soil. He crouched beside a shattered drone, tracing his fingers over claw marks gouged into alloy. The cuts were clean, deliberate. Not mindless rage, precision. He rose slowly, scanning the treeline. The air was heavy, expectant. Birds and small creatures stayed silent. The forest listened with him. Something vast moved within its shadows. Elias's hand brushed the grip of his rifle. Then he let it fall away. A predator that shredded war machines wouldn't be impressed by firepower. If it wanted him dead, he would already be dead. He took a slow breath. Somewhere in that hush, the beast was watching. He could feel it. The council would send fleets again. They would burn entire worlds to destroy the thing. But Elias wasn't a fleet. He was a man who had spent his life reading the rhythm of conflict, the intent behind every motion. He wanted to see this predator for what it truly was. A branch cracked deep in the treeline. A shadow shifted, larger than a tank, silent as dusk. Elias straightened, shoulders squared, and whispered into the empty air, "Come on then." The forest held its breath. And something answered. The treeline stirred as if the forest itself exhaled. Elias steadied his stance, weight balanced, every sense tuned. He had tracked insurgents through deserts and shadows, but nothing in his past compared to this silence. It was not absence of sound, it was anticipation, the world holding still for something immense. A low vibration rolled through the ground beneath his boots. The shadow moved again, slipping between trunks too narrow to conceal its enormity. For an instant, Elias glimpsed the gleam of a massive flank, hide patterned with scars that looked older than empires. He knew instinctively that the war machines in those council archives had not exaggerated the scale. The predator dwarfed them. The forest opened and it emerged. The creature's head brushed branches high overhead, its shoulders broad as a bunker wall. Scales ran in ridged patterns across its chest, fading into coarse fur that bristled with latent electricity. Its eyes, burning amber, intelligent and sharp, locked on him. Every motion was deliberate, every step a weight pressed into the earth with terrifying grace. Elias's hand twitched toward his rifle. He stopped himself. Firing would mean nothing. It would not even sting. The predator had reduced armored battalions to splintered wreckage. He let his hand fall loose at his side. They stared at each other across the clearing. The predator's breath steamed in the cool air, hot enough to curl smoke from broken foliage. Elias felt no terror, only a taut awareness, like the moment before pulling a trigger. This was not battlefield chaos. This was duel, and he was the smaller, weaker combatant. Yet he did not lower his gaze. The predator circled him slowly, massive paws crushing soil, claws clicking against stone. Its eyes never broke contact, reading him as surely as he read it. A predator judged threats, measured prey, and decided which deserved attention. Elias recognized the rhythm of the hunt. But there was no rush. No blind fury. It was studying him. He broke the silence. "You've seen armies. I'm not them." The words were pointless, a whisper against the enormity of the beast, yet something shifted. Its ears twitched. Its head tilted slightly as if parsing not the language but the tone. Elias took a measured step forward. Every instinct screamed to freeze, but he moved anyway, slow and steady. The predator lowered its body, muscles rippling beneath hide. Its claws flexed, gouging earth. Elias raised his hand, not to the rifle but outward, palm exposed. The gesture was reckless, absurd. A beast this size could sever his arm without noticing. Still he held it firm. A rumble rolled from deep in its chest, more resonance than sound, shaking the clearing. It prowled closer, each step rattling Elias's bones. When its head descended, jaws wider than his torso, he kept his hand extended. His heartbeat hammered, but his eyes never wavered. The massive snout stopped inches from his palm. Hot breath blasted across his skin, carrying the metallic tang of old blood and charred machines. The predator inhaled, scenting him, then pressed forward. Elias's hand met rough hide. Warm, alive, scarred. The contact lasted a moment, then another. The predator closed its eyes briefly, a flicker of something almost gentle, then drew back. Elias lowered his hand slowly, refusing to break the unspoken rhythm. From the treeline came the crackle of alien voices. He turned sharply. A squad of council scouts had been shadowing him, their weapons trained on the clearing. They had expected carnage, human torn apart in an instant. Instead, they saw the galaxy's nightmare pressing its head into his hand like a beast greeting a master. One scout hissed through the comms, "Impossible. It does not spare. Kill the human while it's distracted." But the predator's head swung toward them. A roar ripped through the air, a thunderclap wrapped in fury. Trees bent with the force. The scouts scattered, some stumbling, others fleeing into the brush, their courage dissolved. The predator did not chase. Its gaze returned to Elias, waiting. Something unspoken had passed between them. Not dominance. Not submission. Recognition. Elias exhaled slowly. So that's how it is. He took a cautious step back toward camp, eyes still on the beast. To his surprise it followed. Not a stalker's pursuit, but measured, steady, a shadow pacing his stride. By nightfall, the predator lay curled beyond the firelight. Its sheer presence radiated heat that kept the chill at bay. Elias sat sharpening his knife, pretending calm while his mind reeled. The council feared this thing as living apocalypse. Yet here it was, resting like some colossal hound at the edge of his camp. In the distance, council drones buzzed faintly, keeping their surveillance from a coward's distance. Elias knew what they were seeing. Their monster, the warbreaker, not rampaging but settling beside a human. He considered the implications. Fleets had fallen to this beast. Armies had broken. Now it chose to walk with him. Not as a prisoner. Not as a mount. As something stranger. He caught its gaze across the firelight. Those amber eyes glowed, unblinking, holding an intelligence that unsettled him more than its claws. It was not mindless fury. It was decision. Elias wondered what the council would do when they realized the predator had not been tamed but had chosen. He suspected they would send more than scouts. They would send armies again, not for the beast but for him. The thought should have filled him with dread. Instead, he felt a flicker of grim satisfaction. The council had spent generations convincing themselves of their supremacy. Now their deadliest nightmare had lowered its head into the palm of a human hand. The fire crackled. The predator shifted, laying its massive head down upon the earth, its breath slow and steady. Elias's grip tightened on his knife before he set it aside. He lay back, eyes on the stars. The universe had just changed, though it didn't know it yet. And he was at the center. At the edge of sleep, Elias heard a low rumble from the beast, less roar, more something like contentment. He closed his eyes, the corner of his mouth twitching in a faint smile. Tomorrow the council would come. Tomorrow the universe would demand answers. But tonight, man and monster shared the clearing and neither lifted a weapon. The silence held promise. The council chamber seethed with outrage, voices overlapping in a storm of accusation. Holograms projected images from Sector 4. The predator lowering its head into the hand of a human, then pacing at his side like a beast loyal to its master. Delegates recoiled as if the image itself burned, yet they could not look away. The sight undid centuries of fear, replacing the myth of untouchable destruction with something even more terrifying: obedience. "This cannot stand," thundered the scaled delegate who had once demanded fleets. "If the predator follows the human, then the human commands it. Do you grasp what that means? A primitive has become master of the galaxy's greatest terror." "Not master," corrected the insectoid scholar, mandibles clicking with restrained panic. "Chosen. The predator has never bent to command. It has never yielded to force. Bonded. With him." The chamber erupted again, shrill voices cascading in panic. Fleets destroyed could be replaced. Machines could be reforged. But a predator that destroyed war engines now showing loyalty to a human? That undermined the very foundation of council dominance. Fear was their power, and fear was slipping away. Elias's name circled the chamber like a curse. A human soldier, scarred and weathered, once dismissed as insignificant, now the fulcrum on which galactic terror balanced. While the council frothed, Elias walked among the ruins of a burned village. The predator moved with him, silent, its massive frame blotting out the morning sun. He had given it a name in the privacy of his thoughts: Titan. It fit the scale, but more than that, it fit the weight of presence. Titan did not walk as an animal but as something that carried memory, purpose, decision. The husks of council drones lay scattered across the village like discarded toys. Elias crouched near one, brushing fingers along alloy carved open by claws. Titan watched him, tail coiling slowly behind. The beast did not need to prove what it could do. The wreckage spoke louder than any roar. Elias stood, brushing dust from his hands. "They'll come for us now." You know that, don't you? Titan's ears flicked. Its eyes narrowed, catching the light in molten amber. Elias couldn't know if it understood the words, but the timing of its low rumble felt like agreement. Night fell and the first strike came. Mercenary ships dropped from orbit, sleek hunters with weapons calibrated by council engineers. They landed with precision, soldiers fanning into the clearing where Elias's fire crackled. Their leader, a towering avian with plated wings, raised a plasma rifle and sneered. "Human, step away. The beast dies tonight." Elias did not move. Titan rose behind him, shadow swallowing firelight. The mercenaries faltered but did not retreat. Their pay was too heavy, their orders too clear. They raised weapons, targeting systems painting red dots across Titan's chest. Elias lifted a hand. Titan froze, claws flexing, but the beast did not strike. The mercenaries hesitated, unnerved that the creature obeyed a human's gesture. Elias's voice cut through the clearing, low and unshaken. "You think you're hunting it? But you're standing in front of me. That's a mistake." The leader scoffed. "You're nothing but flesh and bone." "Maybe," Elias said. "But I'm the one it listens to." He dropped his hand. Titan moved like a storm unleashed. In a heartbeat the clearing erupted with screams and shattering metal. Claws shredded armor. Jaws crushed steel. Plasma fire streaked wild as soldiers broke formation, scattering in panic. The leader tried to take flight, wings spreading with metallic snap, but Titan seized him mid-air, dragging him down with a bone-splintering crunch. The slaughter ended as quickly as it began. The clearing was silent save for the crackle of fire and the low, steady breath of the predator. Elias stood untouched, rifle still slung across his back, eyes hard. He had not fired a single shot. Titan patted back, claws dripping sparks from ruined machines, and settled beside him. The gesture was not triumph but patience, waiting for his signal again. The message could not be clearer. Titan's fury was chained to his will. Orbiting drones recorded everything. By dawn, the council chamber replayed the footage, every delegate forced to watch mercenaries annihilated not by uncontrolled rage but by obedience. The human raised his hand and the apocalypse paused. He dropped it and the apocalypse struck. The insectoid scholar whispered the thought none dared speak louder. "This is worse than our nightmares." Alone the predator was terror. With a human, it becomes strategy. Panic turned to fury. Propaganda channels lit up across sectors, painting Elias as corrupter, human infection, the dangerous variable that had twisted the natural order. But fear bled beneath every word. Fleets had not stopped the predator. Weapons had not slowed it. Now the galaxy's most fragile species held its leash. Back in the ruins, Elias sat sharpening his knife by firelight. Titan curled around the camp's perimeter, massive body coiled like a living barricade. Elias ran the blade along the whetstone, movement steady, while his thoughts circled darker truths. The council would not stop. They would not let a human keep what they could not control. They would send armies again, bigger this time, stronger. They would not aim to kill the predator alone, they would aim for him, the one link that gave it restraint. He paused, glancing at Titan's steady amber gaze. The beast lifted its head, rumbling low, as if sensing the weight of his thoughts. Elias reached out, pressing a hand against the massive jawline. Titan leaned into the touch, claws sinking into soil but never toward him. "Looks like they'll come for both of us," Elias murmured. "So we'll have to answer together." Above them the stars shifted. Fleets gathered, their engines burning trails across the void, weapons calibrated to hunt apocalypse itself. The council prepared for war, not realizing that what they feared most was no longer the predator, but the bond between predator and man. When Elias lay back beneath the stars, the ground vibrating faintly with Titan's breath, he felt not dread but resolve. For the first time he was not just one soldier drifting between wars. He was part of something larger, something the galaxy would never forget. The council could rage, but the image would not fade, the beast lowering its head into a human's hand, and the human unflinching. That truth spread faster than propaganda, whispered across colonies and stations. The deadliest predator in the universe had chosen, and it had not chosen the council. The night closed in, firelight flickering across steel wreckage and scales. Elias's eyes shut, but his hand stayed resting against Titan's hide. Tomorrow would bring fleets and fury. Tonight ended with a pact sealed in silence. The first strike came with the fury of a collapsing star. Council fleets swept from orbit, their weapons tuned not for conquest but for eradication. Armadas of mechanized titans descended like a tide of steel, each engine engineered to pierce the hide of the beast that had humbled them once before. To the council this was no campaign. It was a purge. Elias stood at the edge of a blasted ridge, wind whipping dust across his face. Beside him loomed Titan, every inch of its body alive with coiled energy, scars glinting in the light of burning skies. The beast lowered its head, waiting. Elias studied the incoming formations, reading their patterns the way he once read insurgents' movements through the lens of a scope. Machines never fought alone. They relied on formation, on doctrine. That predictability was their flaw. They think numbers will make the difference, he muttered. Titan's ear flicked as if the words were more than noise. Elias's grip tightened on the rifle slung across his chest. Let's show them what numbers mean when they're thrown at the wrong enemy. The first wave hit. Columns of mechanized walkers thundered across the plain, each step shaking the earth, each weapon spitting plasma into the haze. Titan surged forward at Elias's signal, the ground buckling beneath its charge. Claws met alloy with devastating precision, tearing apart machines before they could adjust. Elias moved with it, rifle braced against his shoulder, his shots not meant to kill but to cripple. An exposed sensor here, a fuel line there. Each bullet guided Titan's fury into perfect strikes. To the council, the predator alone was nightmare enough. But fighting in tandem with a human's cunning turned nightmare into strategy. Where Titan raged, Elias directed. Where Elias pointed, Titan struck. Ambushes sprung from ruined terrain, flanking maneuvers dismantled carefully spaced formations, and sudden feints lured machines into kill zones where claws reduced them to scrap. The battle became a rhythm, man and beast in lockstep. Plasma fire seared the air, illuminating Titan's hide as it plowed through waves of metal. Elias's mind worked like it had in deserts long ago, but now his partner was no squad of soldiers. His partner was apocalypse itself. He felt the strange certainty that Titan understood. Each time Elias raised his hand or shifted his stance, the beast adjusted, responding as though tethered not by command but by instinctual trust. By dusk, the first fleet lay shattered. Smoking wrecks dotted the plain, fires painting the horizon. Titan stood over the wreckage, chest heaving, hide marked by burns and cuts but unbowed. Elias knelt by its side, pressing a hand to a wound along its flank. The beast lowered its head, amber eyes steady, and allowed him to tend the injury. It could have shrugged him off, healed alone, but it chose to remain still, submitting to his touch as it had in the forest clearing. "You're holding back," Elias whispered, binding the wound with cloth torn from a fallen mercenary. "You're fighting like you're waiting for my word." Titan rumbled low, a sound closer to agreement than threat. Elias realized the truth then. This creature, who had ended fleets on instinct, was now fighting with restraint, as though it trusted him enough to decide when fury was necessary. It was no longer a weapon of destruction. It was something more dangerous, discipline made flesh. Word spread faster than fire. Colonists whispered it first. The predator obeyed a human. Mercenaries who survived spoke of the way it paused until Elias gave a signal, how it struck only when his hand dropped. Fear bled into awe, and awe into a legend sharper than any council edict. The predator was no longer alone. It had chosen humanity. The council reacted with predictable venom. Propaganda swarmed every broadcast, painting Elias as corrupter, calling humanity a contagion that infected even the galaxy's most feared predator. Yet the broadcasts faltered under their own weight. Too many soldiers had seen the footage. Too many drones had captured the human and the beast moving as one. The galaxy no longer feared the predator alone. It feared what man and predator together might become. The next fleet arrived heavier, slower, bristling with siege weapons that dwarfed cities. Entire continents would burn if they unleashed their payloads unchecked. Elias and Titan waited at the canyon rim, the sky bleeding orange from firestorms. He studied their formation, every detail etched against the smoke. Titan crouched low, claws sinking into stone, waiting for his gesture. Elias's voice was calm, almost quiet. "We're not running. They'll keep coming until they understand. Time to end the guessing." He raised his hand, then swept it forward. Titan erupted from the ridge like thunder given form. The canyon wall shook as its bulk slammed into the enemy's vanguard. Siege cannons pivoted, unleashing torrents of fire, but Elias was already moving. He sprinted along the rim, rifle barking in precision shots, forcing weapons to turn where they could do no damage. Every shot was not to destroy but to redirect, guiding Titan into the seams of the formation. Machines designed for extermination fell like toys, their power nullified by the human's intimate knowledge of war. Titan's fury was not random, it was orchestrated, sculpted by Elias's strategy. And as each wave fell, the legend grew. Hours passed in fire and steel until silence finally claimed the canyon. Smoke coiled from ruins, and the night echoed with the distant screams of retreating soldiers. Titan stood bloodied but unbroken, claws soaked in oil and ash. Elias leaned against its shoulder, chest heaving, his face lit by the embers of fallen machines. He looked up at the stars, at the void where more fleets would inevitably come. The Council would never stop. They could not allow this bond to exist, not when it shattered their illusion of dominance. Somewhere beyond, they prepared their final strike, their doomsday weapon, the last card they had left to play. Elias felt the weight of that inevitability, heavy as the scars across Titan's hide. He rested his hand against the beast's jawline, feeling the steady thrum of life beneath its skin. Titan lowered its head, pressing into his palm with quiet certainty. Neither spoke, yet both understood. Whatever came next would demand more than fury, more than discipline. It would demand sacrifice. The horizon glowed with the light of gathering fleets. The war was not over. It was only sharpening to its edge. The Council's final fleet did not arrive with the thunder of conquest but with silence. Ships the size of mountains drifted into orbit, blotting out the stars, their surfaces bristling with weapons that pulsed like veins of molten light. This was no armada meant to intimidate, it was an executioner's blade. Beneath that shadow, Elias stood on the scarred plain, Titan at his side, their breath mingling with the acrid smoke of a world already half-burned. For days, rumors had rippled through the shattered colonies. The Council was unleashing a weapon so terrible that even their own generals spoke of it in hushed tones. The Obsidian Core, a construct designed not to defeat but to erase. Its power was not aimed at the Predator alone but at the bond between Predator and man. To the Council, that union was blasphemy, proof that their order could be broken, and for that, both had to be destroyed utterly. Elias studied the black silhouette of the weapon as it descended, carried on the belly of the flagship. Its form was less machine than monument, a sphere of writhing energy encased in obsidian plates, every motion bending the air as though reality recoiled from its presence. Titan's claws dug into the ground, muscles tense, amber eyes fixed on the descending horror. "They built that for you," Elias whispered. He did not flinch when Titan's head lowered, brushing against his shoulder. The gesture was almost tender, a reminder of the nights by campfires, of quiet moments where the galaxy seemed distant. Elias laid a hand against its scarred hide, steadying both the beast and himself. "But they don't understand. They think they're fighting you." His voice hardened. "They're fighting us." The Council's war machines advanced first, lines of armor and steel moving in lockstep, forming a perimeter around the weapon as it powered up. Elias moved with purpose, directing Titan through gaps in their formation. Every movement was practiced, almost instinctual, the culmination of battles fought side by side. Titan ripped through enemy ranks with precision guided not by rage but by Elias's hand. Where Elias pointed, claws followed. Where Elias crouched low, Titan shielded him with its bulk. The Council's commanders had prepared for the Predator's fury. They had not prepared for the Predator's discipline. Their formations broke faster than calculations allowed, their towering engines collapsing into wreckage. Yet even as machines fell, the weapon's glow intensified, a resonance that made Elias's bones ache. The Obsidian Core did not need time to aim. Its target was the bond itself. Elias felt it when the first wave of its energy surged. Not heat, not light, something deeper. His mind flashed with memories that were not his own. The beast's first kill, the solitude of a predator hunted across galaxies, the aching hunger of survival without companionship. For an instant he saw Titan not as a weapon, but as a creature that had endured eternity without a hand to rest upon its head. Titan staggered, claws sinking into the earth, a low growl rumbling from its chest as though resisting chains only it could feel. Elias clenched his teeth and pressed his palm harder against Titan's hide, grounding them both. "You're not alone anymore," he said through gritted breath. "Not now. Not ever." The second surge came stronger, and Elias knew what the Council intended. The weapon did not simply seek to kill. It sought to sever the bond, the trust, the shared rhythm forged through war and quiet nights alike. Without it, Titan would become what it once was, chaos incarnate. And Elias would be left with nothing but ash. He made his choice in silence. Drawing on every ounce of strength, Elias climbed onto Titan's back, fingers gripping scarred ridges along its spine. Titan turned its head, eyes burning with both fury and fear, as though sensing the weight of what Elias intended. "If it takes both of us to end this," Elias whispered, leaning close to its ear, "then both of us it will take." Titan surged forward, carrying him toward the heart of the battlefield. Energy from the obsidian core lashed outward, tearing trenches into the earth, unraveling machines and men alike. Elias clung to Titan as the beast leapt, dodging blasts that annihilated everything they touched. His rifle cracked against key nodes, each shot carving a path through the storm. Titan responded with brutal precision, claws and fangs reducing defenders to wreckage. Step by step they closed on the weapon. At the base of the core, defenders fell back in disarray, their calculations unraveling in the face of an attack they had deemed impossible. Titan reared, slamming claws into the earth, and Elias lifted his rifle one last time, firing into the seams of the weapon's shell. Cracks spidered across the obsidian surface, light spilling through like a wound torn in the night sky. But the core's response was immediate. Energy flared, locking onto them both, and Elias knew there would be no escape. He slid down Titan's flank and pressed his forehead to the beast's scarred hide. His voice was steady, though his heart thundered. They built this to erase you. But if we go together, they'll never erase us. They'll remember. Titan's rumble was low, almost mournful, but then it pressed its head into his chest, accepting. The bond, forged in trust and battle, sealed in that instant. No predator, no man, only two beings who had chosen each other against the galaxy's will. With a final roar that shook the battlefield, Titan hurled itself at the core. Elias ran alongside for the last steps, shoulder brushing against its flank. Together they plunged into the searing light, claws and bullets tearing into the weapon's heart. The core screamed, its containment collapsing, energy imploding inward with a brilliance that devoured sky and earth alike. The explosion was not fire but silence, a shattering absence that consumed sound and sight. For a moment the galaxy seemed to pause. When the light finally faded, the core was gone, the Council's weapon reduced to shards scattered across a scorched crater. The war machines stood frozen, their command severed, their will to fight extinguished. Among the wreckage, Titan's body lay still. Elias staggered to its side, burns searing his flesh, lungs struggling for air. He dropped to his knees, resting his hand against the beast's jaw. Its amber eyes fluttered open once, meeting his. In that gaze was no fury, no predator's hunger, only trust. A bond unbroken. The breath left Titan's chest in a final exhale, warm against Elias's hand. Then stillness. Elias bowed his head, tears carving through the ash on his face, his hand never leaving the beast's hide. Around him, silence reigned. Even the Council soldiers, scattered and broken, dared not approach. In that moment, a legend was born. Not of a predator that shredded war machines, nor of a man who outwitted fleets, but of the bond between them. A bond strong enough to defy a galaxy. A bond the Council could never erase. Elias rose at last, battered and scarred, the weight of grief anchoring every step. Yet he stood, rifle in hand, eyes set on the horizon where more battles surely waited. He was no longer alone even in loss. For the memory of Titan walked with him, a shadow at his side, a story whispered in every corner of the stars. The galaxy would remember.